Well, folks, what an absolute banger of a week. Week 7 delivered in ways that we didn't even think were possible. Breaking news: James Franklin fired. Penn State drops their third in a row. Bama wins their third in a row. Indiana goes into Eugene, Oregon, and gets the win. Georgia scraps one out of Jordan Hare. Texas gets the Red River shootout in an unthinkable way and holds OU to below 10. We're going to talk about it all, or some of it, or most of it, or wherever we want to go. We've got the man, the myth, the legend himself, Jonny Lane, on the pod. Jonny, welcome to the pod, baby.
Thanks for having me as always, Laner.
Electric intro there, huh? A little bit of everything. We're all over the place.
Oh
Hey,
yeah, a lot
hey,
to cover.
let the people know who our sponsor is, though, Johnny Guy.
Our sponsor, yours truly, Duck Buck Co. So, I mean, look at this hat. Who doesn't want that hat right there? Fits great on the head. Got the rope across. Great colors, can go with anything. And you can get your own. You can get your own on duckbuckco.com. Use code LCFP, 15% off whatever purchase you might make. Go check out the fall line. Got some really good stuff there.
Electric lid. Everything at Duck Buck is so sick. So, not just hats there, people. They got shirts, they got pants, they got hoodies, a little bit of everything. Good stuff, Johnny. Man, where do we even want to start? I think we have to start with the big news out of Pennsylvania. Penn State fires James Franklin. I'm not going to lie, man. I did not see this coming at this point in the season. Were you pretty shocked by this?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's not really seen that often. I think Penn State, there was talks of it last week. At the end of the year, is he done? It's a bust this year. This was supposed to be the year, but not something that a lot of people expected to happen today. I think with everything that happened, it is rock bottom right now in Happy Valley. Drew Aller done. His time at Penn State is going to be over. James Franklin didn't seem like it was going to get any better with him there. Coming so close every year, and this was supposed to be the year. It said a lot, but this was truly what people believed in the college football world as the year. I don't know if I was ever completely sold on it, but you know, what the crumble has really happened over the past 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, it's actually we're recording this tonight, Sunday, October 12th in the evening. And it's actually been 15 days since Penn State played Oregon at home. Game day was there. Oregon was, I believe, the number 2 team in the country at the time. 15 days ago. 3 weeks of college football seasons have gone by. And now you've dropped out of the top 25 and you fired your coach. That's what's mind blowing to me about all of this, Johnny, is how fast things can change. And you mentioned it, and you're a humble guy, and I give you a lot of credit and Howie a lot of credit. And we could roll the tape another episode and go back preseason, but you and Howie were not believers in this at all. There was a lot of noise, and a lot of people grouped Clemson and Penn State together and said, hey, they've both got the returning veteran quarterback. They both got great long tenured coaches, and they both have more returning production than any other top 10 team in the country. This is the year for Penn State or Clemson to do it. And you guys were both very hesitant to buy into either of those programs. And I give you guys a lot of credit because it hasn't gone well for Clemson or Penn State.
Absolutely, and there's something to be said maybe about you know complacency as a whole in college football, and maybe more than ever, complacency week by week can really bite you in the butt. It's always talked about where you got to take every game, you got to take every week one game at a time. You can't live for the full season. You got to live week by week. And now more than ever, with how the transfer portal is affecting the whole landscape, especially in the SEC and the Big Ten, it truly is one of those things. And I hate to pull, FSU into this as well, but maybe a team that was on top of the mountain after week one, right? Have an incredible victory. You got Gus Malzahn there, you got Tommy C. Things are looking good. Mike Norvell, he's back, he's rolling. They're starting to see everything come together at FSU. And after the horrendous last season, probably a lot of confidence. And with that, probably comes some complacency where you think, oh man, we're the big dogs here. Like, in Penn State's case, oh, we're going to roll into UCLA. They don't have a win on the season. They don't have their coach. Nico's been terrible. The whole team has been rough, just losing to group of five teams left and right. Maybe that complacency that truly just has taken over certain programs. It's tough to see, and you wonder if that's really what it is.
Yeah. Johnny, excellent take. grouping several different programs into that as well, mentioning UCLA, mentioning FSU. We can go down those, paths as well. Sticking with Penn State here, I do want to talk about something that's just crazy because you mentioned complacency on the field, within the program, within the locker room. And I really think that this comes down to a lack of complacency within a fan base. And basically, the way I look at this situation is people might think, based on how we talk about James Franklin, that we don't think he's a good coach. I want to make it very clear James Franklin is a very good football coach. He took over a Penn State program that had a lot of sanctions, that was trying to exit the Joe Paterno era and all of the negativity and all of the bad things. He is a very good coach. He is not an elite coach, but there are only a handful of elite coaches in the country. 90% of the country, Johnny, I think would be lucky to have a James Franklin, a guy that's going to get you 9 or 10 consistent wins. The problem is when you're a desperate program, you look at a guy like that and you go, oh man, we'll take that. Once you get 6, 7, 8, 9, now 10 plus years into that, and you've stayed at that same spot, there's that word complacency. The fans are going to be tired of it because you're like, how long can we be on the cusp of greatness, on the cusp of championship level, and we can't get over the hump? And I think that's what's happened here at Penn State. And I just want to make that very clear. When we're talking about 90% of the country, James Franklin, excellent coach. When we're talking about that top percentile, that elite level, that championship contender level, he hasn't been able to get over the hump. And his record shows it, and people will talk about it till, they're red in the face and they beat it like a dead horse. That's what's going on here, basically. And I liken it, and I don't know if you have any thoughts there. Cut me off if you do, but I liken it to the Mark Richt era at Georgia, and Georgia saying, you know what, man, this guy's a great coach. Most of the country would be lucky to have him. He's done awesome things here at Georgia. He's had a long tenure. We win 9, 10 games every year, but we're never winning the SEC. We're never winning the national championship. They take a risk. They move off of him. They hire Kirby, and Kirby gets it done. Now they have 2 national championships, multiple SEC championships. The problem with this, Johnny, is I just don't know if you can do that at Penn State. And I don't know if most places can do that. I think Georgia's the exception.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit it on the head there. Like, I don't think James Franklin is a bad coach, and he did come to that program in a tough time. But like you said, when you're consistently towards the top but not at the top, it just continues to go on and on until ultimately this year was supposed to be the year, right? And it's been building up for 10 years now. And the atmosphere and the donors and a lot of pressure from people are saying like the Adidas deal that they're about to enter into. When you look at how big of a deal that is compared to what his buyout was and that pressure that you're feeling from everybody, your back's against the wall, right? And there's something that you have to do. And in this case, they had to fire James Franklin. They're going to see the effects of that in the recruiting cycle. I don't know how soon they can hire a new coach with other coaches being in the middle of their season, especially with some of the candidates that they might be looking at, whether that be Brent Key or Mike Summerall or whatever that might be, right? Whatever their candidates are, I'm sure that those lists are being made right now. But I think it boiled down to just a lack of focus in these 2 games and a team that really killed itself. And there's something to be said too about, the UCLA, right? Your
Yeah. The
or for
Northwestern. Yeah.
example, the Northwestern, the Texas this week, right? To bring
Yeah.
Oklahoma into it, but your back's against the wall. Texas more than any of those teams with the expectations. It's like you have to win this week, otherwise your chance of a playoff are completely over, right? It looks slim right now, but you have to elevate at some point to regain that, and Texas did, and it's interesting, right? Like, what are they going to go on and do now? Sky's kind of the limit in a way. They do have a very talented roster. Not to go off on a tangent here, but there's just something to be said about those teams that have their back against the wall, and they really rose up this week. So
Absolutely. Yeah. It makes me, I'm so happy to see UCLA bounce back and do this. And you hate to see that it was probably the result of a head coaching hire that was, a mistake. And it's awesome for these younger coaches that have jumped in there and gotten these opportunities. I think Texas as well. I'm happy for Arch. I think about a guy that's got all the pressure in the world on him, all the expectation. It was nice to see him in the post-game interview. He looked looser, he looked freer, and I hope that Texas is able to build off that because I think it's good for the sport. You have a 2-loss team now that every single week, like you said, it's must win. their backs against the wall. And so I hope that they continue to have success and at least competitive ball games and put the pressure on some of these other maybe 0 or 1 loss or other 2 loss teams out there. There's a lot of them. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on Oklahoma bringing back John Mateer? Leading up to the game, the story is like, man, this is amazing. This Dr. Shin, this is incredible. This guy's Heisman level quarterback talent. But man, he had hand surgery on his throwing hand just 17 days ago. Leading up to it, you don't think of it this way, but now that you lost, it's almost worse that he played. You wonder if that shatters his confidence at all. You wonder if he really wasn't fully healthy. And he seems like a tough guy that's got that dog in him. I really like him. He's impressed me in his interviews. But I wonder if Oklahoma's going, should we have played this guy?
Absolutely. And I know we had this conversation on Saturday, but I'm looking at, he's probable. They're upgrading him to active, and it's like, man, in my head, I'm thinking there's no way that they activate this guy, right? Hands
Yeah.
17 days ago, I'm like, okay, they're using this like, now Texas has to prepare for Mateer and whoever else they have that they're going to work in that quarterback room down the line, whatever it was going to be. Man, that just it's kind of a mind game, right? Like you say, oh, he might come back. Maybe they'll use him in a few plays, run some trick things. I thought that there was no way he'd step on that field for as a starting quarterback, and sure enough, he was. And it did not look like he was 100%. So I think definitely some regret there from Oklahoma. Hopefully that doesn't carry into this next week. Hopefully him playing this week didn't affect his hand even more, and it kind of rubs throughout the season because that can really kill your season. If you don't have
Yeah.
material, you don't have your guy, that puts a huge damper on what you're capable of. I think it really would have been worth it when Oklahoma's sitting there with no losses. Take their chance, go against Texas. If you lose the game, it doesn't mean you lose the season, which
That's
is
right.
you were risking with putting material out there.
And you hate to think of it this way, Johnny, because it is a rivalry. And that's one of the beautiful things of this sport is that that game meant so much to Texas and Oklahoma, regardless of the outcome of the rest of their season. Regardless of whether they're national championship, playoff, or conference championship contenders, that game matters so much to them. So it's hard for me as a college football traditionalist to say this, but if you're thinking with the end in mind and you're thinking with the playoff in mind, and you have to now, it's a playoff committee that's going to pick, 7 of the 12 teams that makes the playoff. 5 of them are auto bids. I get that. But you're unlikely to be one of the 5 auto bids. If you're looking at things from the playoff committee perspective, you should probably have gone, okay, a loss with Mateer looks way worse than a loss without him. If we lose without him, we can kind of shrug our shoulders and go, well, we didn't have our guy. We didn't have our best showing. I hate to think of it that way, but I just have to throw that perspective out there. You mentioned FSU as we're continuing to progress and move through this episode. Mike Norvell, what in the world do we think of this situation? I'm kind of mind blown, Johnny. My prediction was way off, and I will own that. I thought heading into the game as a very dangerous spot for Alabama week 1. I thought Florida State felt like they might win this one. Felt like the Thomas Castellanos and Gus Malzahn pairing was ridiculously good. Felt like Mike Norvell's back is against the wall. He has to have a great year. The ACC is wide open this year, very gettable, and that team has got to be more locked in than any other team in the country based on how last year went. Now you look up, they're 0-3 to start off ACC play this year. They're 1-10 in their last 11 ACC games, 5-14 in his last 19 games, Norvell. And this is the kicker, and this has always been my take and my question with Mike Norvell is who is Mike Norvell at Florida State without Jordan Travis as his quarterback? The answer, he is a 7-21 coach. What does FSU do, Johnny?
I think it's one of those situations where they definitely move on. I don't know if they take a page out of Penn State's book right here and just say, let's get ahead of the game, let's hopefully get the guy that we're going for. Penn State, I believe that they did this because of surmounting pressure, one, but
Yeah.
also they have their guy in mind and they don't want to lose him. They want to make sure that they can get him, they can make him an offer he can't refuse and get him up there to Happy Valley. Don't know if that's during the season, after the season, if that's going to be arranged to take over next season, whatever it might be. FSU might have to follow in their footsteps. They do. That's a place where you can't afford to have. And the ACC is not a deep enough conference for you to just be losing games left and right. When you're
Yeah.
FSU and you have the capabilities that you showed on week 1, and you have Gus Malzahn, you have everything click in week 1 against a good Bama team. That was a little rattled for sure, and that was not their best game, but a statement win like that, you have to be able to solidify that in your DNA and be like, listen, we are that team. We're that gritty team that's going to
Yeah.
come out. We're going to play aggressive and we're going to get after you. And it seems like that complacency crept in for them. And then maybe after the Virginia loss or after getting beat pretty bad, or didn't get beat pretty bad, but on watching the game, they were very heavily outplayed by Miami. You don't know
Hmm.
whether they told themselves, we're not that good, and then it's kind of the fall into the negative mindset, and it's a trickle effect, right? So I
Yeah.
agree with you. They haven't had a really good season with Norvell outside of the Jordan Travis season. So I wonder if it was him that made Norvell look good, or if Norvell just doesn't have the right people in his locker room, the right leaders around him.
Yeah. Hard to disagree with you there, Johnny. I love when FSU is good. I know a lot of people might not think that. I'm from the state of Florida. I got a lot of friends here that went to FSU that have grown up FSU fans. There's an expectation there. That's a team that's won a national championship in the last 15 years. I was going to say decade, but we've just crossed that threshold. They're just outside of a decade. Not a lot of teams have won national championships as late, right? So, like, they're a team that I expect to be at that level, that I like being at that level. Um, we're not going to be able to go into it, but I think Hugh Freeze is another name to watch, unfortunately, for Auburn. I know this was the dream job for him, and Auburn was excited to get him. It just hasn't worked out. He hasn't had a quarterback there yet, which is just mind blowing to me, Johnny. So he's kind of shot himself in the foot. I think his days are numbered. His back's against the wall. Obviously, Napier. There's other names out there. We'll get more into that on the Tuesday episode. But we got to talk about Indiana, the Indiana Hoosiers, and we got to talk about Alabama. Indiana, I felt like everybody felt like Oregon was going to get this game. It seemed like on paper. Now, you told me before the game you have two teams right now. And if you'd like to share those two teams that you are looking at as national championship contenders.
Yeah, so before the season, I had a few teams that I picked that were, in my head, capable of winning the national championship. Once the season started, I said, all right, that list is behind me. We'll
Yep.
refer to that at the end of the year. But throughout the season, I'm gonna, once a team gets to that point, then they're on my list. They're capable of winning a national championship. Before the games on Saturday, I told Josh, right now it's still only two teams. I think that there's
Yeah.
still two teams that are capable of winning a national championship. That list can be added to throughout the season. And Indiana is one of those that I'm like on the fringe of putting in there. I think I will. But before Saturday, it was only Ohio State and Miami. Those are the only two teams that I believe have played well enough ball consistently to be able to win the national championship. And that is factoring in the new playoff format as well, right?
Yeah.
It is very difficult if you are not a team that is established and has been successful all season to go win four major games in a row. Unless you have
Right.
a first round bye, you got to win three in a row. But the playoff is such a tough thing to make it through as an underdog, in my opinion, or as a sporadic team. You got to play four really good ball games. And to me, it's yeah, it's cool. We get all these, group of five team in there. You get a few teams with three losses, and that's great. They've shown good things, but to me, the true people that the true teams that can actually win the national championship this year so far, to me, are only Ohio State and Miami. We're thinking about adding Indiana, but that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, and I think that's totally fair, Johnny. Like, I might disagree with you slightly on my own list, but I think you're doing it the right way. Hey, preseason predictions go out the way. On this, you're evaluating week to week, and right now is about the halfway point in the season. And I think that's a very honest take and honest evaluation going, I'm watching these games, I'm watching how the season goes, and to me, those are the two teams to beat right now. That's absolutely fair, Johnny. Indiana, outside or on the cusp of your list, they've been phenomenal, man. I just, for a second, need to give Curt Cignetti his props and his roses. He already, Franklin's fired now, so his tenure at Penn State is over. Curt Cignetti is halfway through his second year. He already has more top 10 wins than James Franklin did his entire tenure at Penn State. That's ridiculous, man. Curt Cignetti, and I'm not trying to take away from Indiana, but I think Curt Cignetti has been overlooked for a long time. It's not like he's a younger coach like a Kenny Dillingham that's just getting his first shot. He's been around the block. He was on Saban's staff over a decade ago. He was at James Madison. He gets his chance at IU. I really wonder. I know Howie will get on the pod at some point and say, no, he loves IU. He's here forever. I wonder if Penn State is going to look at him. I wonder if Potentially Florida State is going to look at him, or an Auburn or whoever, right? There's going to be a lot of jobs available. We already know Arkansas is available. Um, I also think in general, this coaching carousel is going to be nuts, Johnny. There's a lot more to come. Last year was so light, you just knew this year would be an explosive one. But Indiana, give them all the credit in the world. That's a massive win. They quietly picked up one of the best quarterbacks in the transfer portal in Fernando Mendoza, South Florida kid, Miami kid from Columbus, Johnny, the all boys school. Um, Seems like a great kid, man. He got a lot of airtime on game day. Even seeing him, some clips from after the game, seek out Dante Moore when Dante Moore was just trying to head to the locker room and dap him up. It just seems like a respectful kid, goes about things the right way. I know that it kind of came down to Indiana and Georgia. Those are two of the top 10 teams in the country right now. And Indiana and him have paired excellently. I give Indiana all the credit in the world. And I want to say preseason, my top tier in the Big Ten was Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State. And very clearly, I had it wrong. I absolutely should have had Indiana in there instead of Penn State. I read that wrong. Indiana, man, they look like they're here to stay. It's very impressive what they're doing.
Absolutely, and especially with the quarterback turnover to remain that successful over the 2 years, right? You had Rourke last year, and he was a fan favorite up there. But really seeing what Mendoza's been able to do, even almost more effectively than Curtis was, it is cool to see, and all the props to them. Obviously, Oregon was a good team. That the Penn State downfall is maybe questioned, maybe how legit Oregon is still.
Mm,
That's why I was hesitant to put them on my list, and that's why I see this as a very good win still at Oregon, really good win. But I don't know how elite that team really was. There was a lot of questions about them preseason. They're young, they're definitely talented, but I still was indifferent about Oregon. I liked what I saw most of their games, but not really being tested up until that point. So that's why I'm kind of finicky about both those teams. Just want to give
yeah.
a little context.
Yeah, no, that's really good stuff. And let's close out here with Alabama. Highest ranked one loss team in the country right now, right at six. They just made SEC history, only the fourth team in SEC history to win 3 straight weeks in a row without a bye against a ranked opponent. And they have a chance to go with a fourth week in a row this week as they host Tennessee. I saw, and this irks me a little bit. I saw Dave Portnoy, I saw Connor Stallions, a lot of these Big Ten homers posting and sharing things and talking about, oh, if Ohio State goes in and beats Illinois this weekend, the narrative will just be, oh, Illinois is a fraud. But if Alabama goes in and beats Missouri this weekend, well, then it's just, well, Alabama came out with a tough win. That is just like, I get it, man. If you pull for a team, if you pull for a conference, good for you, man. But when we're just throwing stuff out there like that, it's a little bit ridiculous. Illinois has already been blown out by 50 to Indiana. Missouri's undefeated. And considering the fact that Alabama has to go on the road, 11 a.m. start time, third week in a row, playing a ranked opponent, and Missouri's coming off of a bye, and they have the best running back in the country at the moment, I mean, you have to give Alabama a lot of credit for this win. And I think you put it best, Johnny. They didn't have their best stuff, but they found a way to get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. More than ever this year, I feel like I'm just going to give my flowers to teams that win the games. If you, it doesn't really matter how it looks. If you can, especially in the SEC, if you can go out and you can win a game on a Saturday, no matter what the score is, good for you. You did it. You survived a week and on to the next. In the terms of Alabama, not the greatest game I've seen Alabama play this year by any means. There were some mistakes on offense, some mistakes on defense. We did shut down the run game, which I was really happy about. That was a big concern going into the week. But the fact that Alabama has won 3 of these games in a row, all tight games for the most part, 2 of them on the road. There's something to be said about that. Teams that just show up, get the job done, even if they don't have their A game. That's a team that you can rely on in the future. So I'm happy to see that out of Alabama. It makes me feel good going into this week against Tennessee, which is a very good team. So I'm excited to see how this game plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to talk more about this coming week in the next episode, and we'll absolutely dig more into Auburn and some of the officiating things there. We'll cover a few other programs and maybe dabble into the coaching carousel even more. But man, Johnny, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks so much for jumping on. Any final thoughts, or you feel good about things?
Feel good about things, Laner.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, thanks so much for taking the time. To everyone listening in, once again, we want to thank our sponsors, DuckBuck. Visit duckbuckco.com. Use code LCFP for 15% off anything, not just the hats. Anything you order, the entire order will be 15% off. Really appreciate DuckBuck. And as always, man, please, if you enjoy the pod, send it to a fellow college football fan. Leave us a rating and a review. Let us know what you like to hear. Or if you know Johnny and I, send us a text, reach out to us on the socials. We always appreciate hearing your college football thoughts and takes. For now, this is Later, signing off.